There, friends, folks, musicians alike. My name is Riley Voth, and I wanted to give a quick little introduction to myself as a guitar teacher, musician. So I started playing guitar when I was 15 years old, and it kind of came out of nowhere. I was in choir at that point and had an idea that it'd be fun to start a band and just sing for the talent show. But anyway, got some buddies together, and our first band practice, we're listening to Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is kind of funny to think a angsty 15-year-old teenager would want to play that. But anyway, that's what we wanted to do. So when we were listening to the song during the guitar solo, there was a rhythm guitar track, and I got tasked with playing that. My drummer had an extra cheap Johnson Stratocaster knockoff, and they handed that to me. My buddy showed me how to do a power chord, and they just kind of sent me on my way. And so, being completely out of my element, I took it home, and it was just such an amazing feeling to be able to create music for the first time. I had taken piano lessons at a point, but I was just playing what was on the page, what my teacher taught me. And so I really do feel like that was the point that kind of defined me as a person when I was 15, because nothing else really stuck. I wasn't huge into sports. But anyway, I was essentially self-taught for the first 2 years, but took it very seriously. So I started looking online, getting some different books, and just kind of grilling myself and doing all these drills, writing out scales, learning as much as I could. But without a teacher, it was very difficult to synthesize all these ideas into kind of a coherent picture. But that kind of changed in my senior year, where I started taking guitar lessons from two different guys. One, is a gentleman named Andy McKee, who's got a bunch of videos on YouTube. I would highly recommend checking him out. He's an incredible acoustic guitar player. And then I was taking jazz lessons from a guy named Brian Baggett, who's just an unbelievable mentor, teacher, guitar player, philosophical guru as well. And so that my guitar playing really sort of blossomed at that point, being able to bring these ideas, bring these scales into a more clear, concise picture. And then I got into the University of Kansas, where I continued pursuing music. I studied guitar under Rod Fleeman. And it was so interesting to see the different approaches of teaching from Brian and Rod with jazz specifically, because they're teaching the same style, but in such a different way. So anyway, I was at KU for 2 years and then moved to Nashville for about a year and a half, went to Belmont University and continued some guitar lessons intermittently with some different people. And then moved back to Kansas, finished my undergraduate where Brian Baggett was teaching at Ottawa University again. And then I did some of a master's at UMKC under Danny Embry. And so having these different teachers is so interesting, like I said, to see the difference in approaches. And what I learned, in teaching my own lessons and students, is what I tried to do is take certain elements of, what this guy worked on and certain elements of what this, teacher worked on that I preferred more, and bring that into a picture that really helped me more. And what I found is every single person is a different type of learner. You got, visual, auditory, tactile, some variation, some, combination of those. So I really try to work with each individual student and figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are. If they're more of a visual one, really try to work on building some more, sight reading skills, but at the same time, recognize that, hey, maybe you're not so great at ear training. Kind of recognize that at the same time, and make sure you can bolster both their strengths and also get their weaknesses and try to match those as good as possible. So that's my main thing with teaching, is trying to work with each individual student. And for me, when I first started, like I said, I was totally self-trained. It was just the Wild West for me. There was no rules, and it was really great to be able to have that exploratory time where there wasn't any stringent lesson plan to work on. So with young students, I like to try to impart that as well, give them some agency with themselves to have creative freedom and not be too rigid with the lesson plan. Allow them to identify songs that they want to learn, but still give them the mechanics and the skills to have the ability to learn that, while at the same time trying to introduce maybe some stylistic elements, different genres, different artists that they might not necessarily think of themselves. And if that sticks, that's great. If not, the main thing is for them to have fun, because if you're doing it out of spite or for your parents or something like that, it's just not fun. In addition to that, as students become a little bit more advanced, what I really try to also encourage them to do is become researchers themselves. Because with the internet, there are so many tools, so many books as well that you can get pretty, relatively cheap. And after a certain point of lessons, you can kind of learn whatever you want yourself. And so that's one of my main goals as well, is to get a student to the point where they don't necessarily need lessons anymore. I mean, I always encourage trying to learn from as many different people as possible throughout the life of a musician, myself included. If I meet somebody that has an incredible skill set, I'd love to just at least sit down and have a conversation. But one of my main goals is to get them to be a lifelong learner, and I think that's one of the greatest ways to approach life in general for everything, but especially for an instrumentalist, is just continue, chip away, be consistent with it. And I guess that's my main mentality with teaching. I look forward to meeting any students that get thrown my way. So thank you so much.